I died and no one was willing to take care of my body later. A crew-cut man with a ruffian look took care of my funeral affairs. He also held my ashes and set a fire in the basement of my house. Loser. I've taken care of those who bullied you for you. When I opened my eyes again, I went back 10 years ago. The young man with a full ruffian look and SMECTA style blocked my way to school and asked, "Joanne, you force me to do my homework every day. Do you like me or something?" I died from cyberbullying. I spent the last period of my life in extreme anger and depression. On the internet. Remarks like "Joanne, go to hell today, is another day to curse Joanne. And is Joe an Ed yet?" were everywhere. Even when I went to buy painkillers because of a headache, I was sarcastically ridiculed by the staff in the pharmacy. "Now you know it hurts. When you slapped your sister and stuck needles into her, did you ever think that she would also feel pain?" The place where I lived was splashed with paint, and many words like, "Bitch, go to hell," were written on the wall. And the instigator of all this was my once closest family. They spared no effort to smear me and claim to the outside world that I was an ungrateful wretch. I should have known that she was so vicious we shouldn't have given birth to her in the first place. My mother said through gritted teeth in front of the camera, "We'd already cut off relations with her. Whether she lives or dies in the future has nothing to do with us," my father said with hatred on his face. As for my sister, whom I was said to have bullied for over 10 years, she wiped her tears and cried, "Sister, I didn't tell others about your plagiarism. Please don't scold me on WeChat anymore, okay?" I looked at the family of 3 who had already been blocked by me on WeChat, and there was nowhere for my anger to vent. Finally, I pulled my hair and wrote a clarification statement, but no one believed it. My social media accounts were filled with countless private messages full of abuse and curses. None of the people who cursed me was someone I knew. I was desperate and scared. Having no way out, I called the police. However, faced with such large-scale cyberbullying, the police couldn't come up with a better solution either. They could only advise me not to go online and not to look at those comments and private messages. I stayed indoors every day and didn't dare to go online. Until one day when I went downstairs to take out the garbage, I was stabbed by a man wearing a baseball cap. "Joanne, you bet. Why don't you just die?" He stabbed me many times. Each stab was fierce. I didn't know him, but he recognized me with each stab. He listed my so-called crimes and repeatedly called out the nickname of Yvonne and said he wanted to avenge her. He was a crazy fan of my sister Yvonne. Later, someone saw us. He pushed me away and ran off, and I was sent to the hospital by ambulance. After being rescued for more than 10 days, I still passed away. The moment my soul floated out of my body, I felt extremely relieved. Finally, I didn't have to face those unfounded accusations and abuse anymore. The hospital called my parents and asked them to handle my body. They refused, saying that they had already cut off relations with me and asking the hospital not to call them anymore. My soul was thus trapped in the morgue. During that time, the police came. The murderer who killed me had been caught. There was a sufficient chain of evidence, and the case had been transferred to the Purgatory. However, my parents still refused to forgive me even though I was already dead. They didn't plan to take care of my funeral affairs. Hearing this, I wasn't really that sad because I had long stopped caring about them. That couple who gave me life, when they decided to believe their younger daughter let me be cyberbullied and even threatened to cut off relations with me, they no longer deserved to be my parents. It was just as well that they didn't come to take care of my body. Otherwise, they would have dirtied my path of reincarnation. The only thing I didn't expect was that there was actually someone in this world who believed that I hadn't done those things, and I didn't know him at all. The person who was willing to believe me was a tall man with a crew cut. He had outstanding facial features, but there was a lot of hostility between his eyebrows and eyes. He liked to smile with the corners of his mouth tilted, looking full of ruffian charm. At first glance, he seemed like a marginal member of society. I didn't remember that I had ever been in contact with such people, but he took the power of attorney written by my parents and successfully took me out of the morgue. After having me cremated, he began to curse while holding my urn. It cost me over 1,000 yuan. "Joanne, you're really damn precious. Forget it. I won't care about it anymore. Anyway, you're already dead, but you're so useless. When those people cursed you, why didn't you curse them back? When others slandered you for plagiarism, you didn't even dare to say a word. Loser." Online it said that you had bullied your sister for a long time? I don't believe that bullshit at all. And that crappy video was clearly photoshopped. There's a mole on the back of your neck. I remember it clearly. Damn it, that woman doesn't even have 1/10,000th of your figure. Don't be sad though. Brother will seek justice for you. Listening to his continuous stream of swear words, I couldn't help but have my eyes turn red. It turned out that he was the only one in this world who believed me. Thank you, stranger. At first, I didn't know what he meant by seeking justice. Until he held my urn and came to an old house. Looking at the familiar yard in front of me, I instinctively wanted to leave, but just as I floated 3 meters away, I was pulled back to the man's side by an invisible force. The man opened and the yard gate skillfully and walked in as if there was no one else around. To my surprise, he actually had the key to my house. But soon, I wasn't surprised anymore because he had kidnapped everyone here: my former parents, my sister, and my boyfriend. In the basement, the man turned on the light, and everyone's eyes looked over. Their eyes were full of pleading. The man walked over, tore off the tape on their mouths one by one, and then placed my urn on a chair in the middle. All of you, come here and count out a Joanne to admit your mistakes. He folded his arms, looking carefree. Yvonne was the first to crawl over on her knees and kowtowed 3 times loudly towards my urn. Sister, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spread rumors that you bullied me. Will you forgive me? I stood aside and witnessed her shamelessness once again. She actually asked an urn to forgive her. Why didn't she turn into a kneeling position to beg me herself? I was thinking this with hatred. My former boyfriend James also knelt over. Joanne, I'm wrong. I shouldn't have suspected that you had an affair with someone else. It was this bitch who lied to me. Halfway through his words, he suddenly pointed at Yvonne and started cursing. Of course, Yvonne wouldn't take the cursing obediently and retorted sarcastically, when you were cheating on my sister with me, why didn't you say that I was lying to you then? Don't forget that it was you who slandered her for plagiarism. That's because you instigated. Loser. The crew cut man got annoyed and kicked him away. James didn't dare to talk back, even after being cursed. The crew cut man pointed at the middle-aged couple. It's your turn. The middle-aged woman shook her head. There's nothing to say. Quite gutsy. The man sarcastically raised his eyebrows, and then pointed at the middle-aged man and asked, what about you? My father hung his head, his hands clasped tightly together. I couldn't see his expression clearly, and I didn't really want to look either. I've always been curious. Is Joanne your biological daughter? The crew cutman asked sarcastically. I looked at him in disbelief. He still had his eyebrows raised, smiling with the corners of his mouth tilted in a ruffian way, but he asked the question that had been puzzling me all along. Was I the biological daughter of this couple? If I was their biological daughter, why could they be so heartless? Let me be cyberbullied, and leave me in the cold morgue without asking or caring. How much hatred did they have for me? I saw my mother's face suddenly turn ugly. My father still hung his head, but his voice trembled uncontrollably. How I wished that Joanne was my... Shut up. Before my father could finish his words, he was interrupted by my mother's roar. She raised her head and stared at the crew cut man viciously, cursing, little bastard. From the first moment I saw you, I knew that you were just like your father. A murderer, and you were doomed to spend the rest of your life in prison. Do something big. The man nodded. You're right, but my father only killed one person. I want to do something big today. You're crazy. I looked at him in shock. Even more shocked than me were Yvonne and James. After their shock, they started begging for mercy like crazy, with snot and tears streaming down their faces as they kowtowed to my ashes to admit their mistakes, hoping that the crew cut man would spare them. Too late. The crew cut man took out his phone, edited the surveillance video here, and sent it out. After sending the video, he threw the phone away. Yvonne, 8 years ago, you climbed into my bed when I was drunk and slandered me for raping you. Do you know, at every day I was in prison, I wanted to kill you. After saying that, he pointed at the other 3 people and said, haven't you always regarded her as a treasure? You believe whatever she says. Since that's the case, you might as well die with her. Then you walked outside the door and poured 2 barrels of oil that he had prepared long ago into the basement. Shane, don't do anything stupid. I finally remembered who he was. His name was Shane. 8 years ago, he was 18 years old. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison for allegedly raping Yvonne, but it turned out that it was also Yvonne's lie. I could understand that he hated Yvonne, but he couldn't do stupid things. He still had a great life ahead of him. He couldn't lose the rest of his life just because of this bitch. Shane, stop. I roared despairingly, "It's not worth it. It's not worth it for this bitch." Stop quickly. But no matter how loudly I shouted, Shane couldn't hear me at all. The moment he took out the lighter, I saw my mother crawl to my urn and cry out, "Joanne, Mom's wrong. Mom's really wrong. Please make this madman stop." Her words made me pause for a moment, but just for that moment. Shane lit the lighter in the firelight. I saw him suddenly push that woman away and then hold my urn in his arms. "Joanne, I'm not doing this for you. I've long wanted to die. A long, long time ago. I felt so tired of living one life for 4 lives. Damn it, it's worth it. Worth shit. You idiot. Don't you know how to calculate at all?" For the first time in my life, I really wanted to swear. "Shane. You idiot. What the hell is this all about? In my life, you weren't even a passerby. Don't you understand? You're so stupid that you might as well die." My intangible body desperately tried to hug Shane, who was surrounded by the firelight, but all my efforts were in vain. Before he died, he restored all my innocence. But I couldn't even give him a hug at this moment. I hated myself to death. Bang! With an explosion, my soul was scattered by an absolute force. When I opened my eyes again, I was tightly wrapped in a hot and lively body. Right in front of me was a youthful face that still had a childish look. The young man had long, explosive blonde hair and a row of densely packed ear studs on his left hair, a typical SMECTA look. I could still see the shadow of him 10 years later, between his eyebrows and eyes. "Shane." I looked at him in disbelief. Shane looked at me with complicated eyes and suddenly pulled me up from the sofa. Only then did I notice that the environment I was in was a private room in a KTV. The private room was crowded with men and women. At least 20 people. Some of them were wearing school uniforms, while others were in strange clothes, clearly non-mainstream at first glance. Shane was one of the non-mainstream. When she dragged me out of the private room, someone in the crowd jeered, "Shane. You're in such a hurry, are you going to get a hotel room?" Shane didn't say a word and just pulled me along as he walked out. Just as we reached the door, suddenly a girl in a school uniform skirt stopped us. "Shane. Let my sister go." The familiar voice made the goosen stall over my body stand up. It was Yvonne. Shane didn't stop walking. He opened the door and pushed me out roughly. "Go home. This isn't a place you should be." After saying that, he was about to close the door. I pushed the door open forcefully, walked past Shane, and stared fixedly at Yvonne behind him. The long-buried memories were finally awakened in Yvonne's first year of high school. She fell in love with a little hooligan in their school. The little hooligan was ignorant and had poor grades. He spent all day hanging out with some out-of-school teenagers in society. Yvonne's studies were thus delayed. She skipped school and played around with those delinquent teenagers all day long. One night, after my self-study class, I saw her walking into a KTV with a group of boys. Worried about her safety, I followed them. When I pushed open the door of the private room, a group of teenagers had opened a whole table full of beers and were singing and dancing, vowing not to stop until they were drunk. Yvonne had also drunk a lot. I walked over, snatched the beer bottle from her hand, and wanted to take her home. But I was pushed by a boy who looked like a hooligan. And immediately there was laughter in the private room. I staggered and fell onto the sofa. Unfortunately, I fell into a boy's arms. Back then, because I was too scared and the KTV lights were dim, I didn't see the other person's face clearly at all. Just when everyone was jeering that I had thrown myself into someone's arms, the boy coldly threw me out of the private room. He said exactly the same words as just now. And Yvonne's change in attitude towards me started from that time. Before that, although she wasn't close to me, she never targeted me. But after that night, she began to target me everywhere. Sometimes she would say mean things to my face and then turn around and complain about me to our parents. At first, I thought she just didn't like me meddling in her business, but later, even when I let her be as she was willing to degenerate, she didn't restrain her behavior. Fortunately, in my second year of high school, I took the college entrance examination ahead of schedule. After being admitted to my ideal university, I left home, and she didn't have the chance to bother me anymore. Now that I think about it, the good-for-nothing hooligan she liked was Shane. So, this was the real reason why she hated me. Thinking that a year later, she would still falsely accuse Shane of raping her and send the boy she liked to prison. I found it unbelievable, and such a person was actually my sister, who was related to me by blood. How disgusting. Sister, What kind of look is that? Yvonne seemed a bit scared by my stare. Subconsciously, she took a step back, swallowed, and said, I've already told Mom that I'll stay at a classmate's house tonight. Dawn. Go blabbing when you go back. After saying that, she curled her lips and smiled again. Even if you tell on me, I'm not afraid. Mom and Dad won't believe you. I don't care about your business. Looking at the snug smile on her face, my heart ached. Yvonne was right no matter what I said. That couple wouldn't believe me. I don't know why. Ever since I could remember, Mom and Dad always had 100% trust in Yvonne. When I was a child, Yvonne broke a vase and said that I smashed it in a fit of temper. No matter how I explained, Mom just didn't believe me. She locked me in my room and asked me to reflect on myself. She also bought me a lot of books on moral education and asked me to copy them. She would check them every day. Her discipline over me was so strict that it was almost abnormal. But she was very indulgent towards Yvonne. For a while, I thought it was a way for her to show her love for me. It wasn't until she chose to believe Yvonne threatened to cut off the mother-daughter relationship with me, let me be cyber-bullied, and didn't even want to take care of my body after I died that I finally saw clearly. All the things she did to me were not love at all. It was clearly hatred. I clenched my fists, tried hard to sort out my emotions, slowly turned my head, and looked at Shane with yellow hair and asked, Can you take me home? As soon as I said that, there were sighs all around. The beauty is so proactive, Shane. Don't be a coward. Look at the school uniform. She's from No. 1 middle school. Are good students so bold too? They were talking one after another. If it were me 10 years ago, I would probably have died of shame and anger, but at this moment, I didn't change my expression at all because I just wanted to take Shane away. Since God had given me a chance to be reborn, I couldn't let Shane go through the same old path as in the previous life. I wanted to give him a shining and hopeful life. All those thoughts like not wanting to live long ago and feeling tired of living were just nonsense. Shane was stunned. He stared at me blankly for a long time until Yvonne angrily went to pull his arm. Without thinking, Shane pushed her away. He walked to the corner booth sofa, picked up an empty school bag, slung it over his shoulder, and said, I'll take you home. Thank you. I was about to leave when Yvonne grabbed me and whispered, Sister, aren't you afraid that I'll tell Mom and Dad that you're with the son of a murderer? After she said that, the atmosphere in the private room instantly changed. The people who were watching the fun just now suddenly stopped talking. I subconsciously looked at Shane. Shane lowered his head, and his long bangs covered most of his face, making it hard to see clearly. I broke Yvonne's hand and waved in Shane's direction. I'll wait for you outside. With that, I left without looking back. After a while, there were footsteps not too far or too close behind me. I walked very slowly. I thought Shane would catch up quickly, but he always walked behind me, keeping a certain distance from me. I simply stopped and waited for him. As a result, when I stopped, Shane also stopped. I turned around in confusion and saw Shane carrying his school bag, looking at me defensively. I walked over, and Shane instinctively took a step back. I asked in confusion, Are you afraid of me? Joanne, don't come to this kind of place again in the future. He didn't answer my question directly but changed the topic. I looked at him quietly. His eyes were very dark, and his expression was more serious than I had ever seen before. I'll listen to you. I won't come again in the future, I said. Shane breathed a sigh of relief. Let's go home. Okay, let's go together. With that, I pretended to be generous and patted him on the shoulder. His body stiffened for a moment, but soon returned to normal when we reached downstairs of my house. Shane stopped. Go upstairs, he said. Under the street lamp. I looked at Shane's face and asked, Are you going back? Going back to that noisy KTV private room? The high school he attended had a very low enrollment rate for further education. And he was in the second year of high school, the most crucial year. At this time, shouldn't he be at home reading books, doing practice questions, and reviewing lessons? Why did he go to that kind of place? Moreover, I could feel that he didn't like that environment. Shane snorted softly, raised his eyes to look at me, and said, Joanne, don't care about your sister in the future, and don't care about me either. He paused for a moment and then continued, We're not the same as you. I nodded and said, Come and pick me up after school at our school tomorrow, okay? You're not someone I can afford to mess with, understand? He looked at me quietly. A sarcastic curve appeared at the corner of his mouth. And he warned in a deep voice, "Joanne, I won't come." Shane winked. "I'll wait for you at the school gate tomorrow no matter how late it is. I'll wait until you come." I didn't care about his warning. After saying what I wanted to say, I turned around and ran into the corridor behind me. Came Shane's somewhat angry and frustrated voice. "Even if you wait until dawn, I won't go." When I got home, Mom's face was very ugly. "Why are you back so late?" She had a cold face, looking like she was about to interrogate me. "Yvonne hasn't come back either." I didn't give her a good look either. In my previous life, I always thought that her control over me was out of love. So even though it was suffocating, I endured it silently. I tried hard to make myself better and more refined, to become the daughter she wanted now. I no longer had any illusions. So I didn't want to wrong myself anymore. "Yvonne is staying at a classmate's house tonight. She already reported it to me." "What about you? You didn't go home after self-study, did you? Go fooling around?" Mom's face became even uglier when she saw me talking back, and her voice rose a lot. "Yes, I went fooling around. Are you satisfied?" I sneered and walked towards my room. Mom saw this and wanted to stop me. She was pulled by Dad, who had just been driven out of the room. "It's midnight, don't disturb the neighbors." Mom took a deep breath to calm down her emotions and said, "I heard from your head teacher that your total score in this month's exam is 8 points less than last time. Joanne, you've really let me down. Even if it's 8 points less, I'm still the first in the grade. What are you disappointed about?" I looked at her and smiled in confusion. "Yvonne went to no. 2 middle school, and I didn't see you disappointed either. How can you compare with Yvonne? She's been more sensible and obedient than you since she was a child." "She's so sensible and obedient, but she didn't even get into a key high school." I interrupted Mom before she could finish her words. "You." I slammed the bedroom door shut outside the door. I could hear her and Dad scolding me. I said that I had bad intentions and was so arrogant just because I had a little cleverness. Dad advised her to relax. But she said that if it weren't for her strict management, I would probably have been in a juvenile detention center long ago. I lay on the bed, covering myself with the quilt. The tears that had accumulated into lifetimes finally flowed out. For a moment, I even wanted to rush out and ask that woman whether I was really her biological daughter or not. If I was, why did she always think the worst of me? Forget it, it didn't matter anymore. Soon I would move out and completely leave this home. Since the relationship had been severed in the previous life, I didn't want to have anything to do with them in this life either. After school the next day, I waited for Shane at the school gate. I waited until the self-study class was over. All the classmates had left school, and the school guards had locked the gate. But I still refused to leave. As time passed by bit, seeing that the stores on the street were closing one after another, and it was getting darker and darker, Shane finally showed up. He had that SMECTA-style blonde hair on his head, which was particularly conspicuous under the street lamp. I excitedly rushed over to him. "I knew you would come." "Crazy." Shane looked cool and ruffian, with a very disdainful smile on the corner of his mouth. I ignored his attitude and took out a set of our school's monthly exam papers from my bag. "Here you are." I begged our head teacher for a long time before he gave them to me. Actually, I didn't beg for that long, but I deliberately said so, hoping that he would cherish them. Shane took the thick stack of exam papers, and his face darkened. "Joanne, you waited for me here in the middle of the night, just to give me these?" "Yes." As I said that, I took out my mobile phone. "Let's add each other on WeChat. If you have any questions you don't understand, you can ask me at any time." He flipped through a few pages and then threw the papers at my face. "Get lost." I took the papers, tittied them up one by one, and chased after Shane, provoking him. "Are you unable to do them? If you can't, I can teach you. Get away from me." Shane shouted at me. I could tell that he was really angry. I really begged for a long time to get these. "These questions are really not difficult at all. Don't you really want to give them a try? If there are questions you don't know how to do, I'll teach you." "Shane, don't you want to go to college? Going to college will give you more opportunities to choose in the future." "I want to be a writer in the future." "Shane, want to be a writer in the future? Is there anything you want to do? Let's work hard towards our goals together, okay?" I kept nagging as I followed behind Shane. Finally, having fulfilled my sigh, he couldn't bear my annoyance anymore and turned his head, looking at me coldly. "My goal is to court you. Are you up for it?" I looked at him in shock, to be honest. I had never dreamed that a boy's life goal could be as simple as courting me. Seeing that I was stunned, he sarcastically tilted the corner of his mouth and warned, "Good student. If you don't want to be courted by me, then don't mess with me." He turned around and walked away. I was so anxious that I grabbed him. "I'm okay with it." After saying that, I was so shy that my face almost bled. This time it was Shane's turn to be stunned. He stared at me blankly for several seconds, and then squeezed out 2 words. "Crazy." As he said that, he tried to shake me off. I held on even tighter. "Finish these papers and I'll let you court me. You can court me for a lifetime." Damn it. The more I talked, the more shameless I became. My face was getting redder and redder. So red that I felt like I was about to catch fire. Shane looked at me in disbelief and threatened, "I'm into girls, not studies." "Then shall we add each other on WeChat first?" I said. "Damn it." Shane took out his mobile phone and said very suspiciously, "Am I that charming now?" I immediately scanned the QR code and added him as a friend. Then I stuffed the exam papers into his hands along the way. "Ask me if you don't understand. I'll check on you at the weekend." Troublemaker. Shane impatiently stuffed the exam papers into his school bag. "Let's go. I'll walk you home." Okay, this time it was my turn to follow behind him with a red face. I didn't even dare to look at him at all. Shane unhappily hooked his arm around my neck and pulled me forward. "Didn't you say you're okay with me courting you? Don't act like I'm forcing you. Do the papers first." I shrank my neck and was too embarrassed to lift my head. I was really too bold just now. I just wanted to repay the kindness he had shown for standing up for me in my previous life. How come I got myself involved in this mess somehow? When we arrived downstairs at my house, Shane suddenly grabbed me, who was about to go upstairs. "Good student, let me make this clear first, since you promised to let me court you. Don't back out at the last minute. I, Shane, hate those female cheaters who play with people's feelings the most." His words were tough, but there was a trace of timidity in his eyes. I knew what he was afraid of, so I stood on tiptoe and kissed him on the cheek. On the cheek. I've stamped it. I'll never go back on my word. Shane's cheeks visibly turned red. The shyness in his eyes was impossible to hide. And finally, he could only pretend to be calm and wiped the place where I had kissed him. "Damn it. I'm so charming." After saying that, he turned around and ran away. I shouted at his back, "Don't forget to do the papers when you get back." Bang! Shane directly bumped into a street lamp. I was completely dumbfounded. He got up and ran towards the gate of the community at a sprinting speed. Seeing that he disappeared in a flash, I couldn't help laughing. As soon as I turned my head, my smile froze. Yvonne was looking at me gloomily. "Sister, why did you steal my boyfriend?" "Shane isn't your boyfriend," I replied coldly, refuting her. "If you hadn't competed with me for him, he would have become my boyfriend sooner or later," Yvonne said angrily. Hearing her such shameless remarks, I was both angry and amused. In my previous life, I didn't compete with her for Shane. As a result, he was framed by her and went to prison before graduating from high school. That year, I was studying in a university in another city when I suddenly received a call from home for the first time. My mother asked me calmly, "Your sister has been violated. What should we do?" Without thinking, I said, "Call the police and catch him." Later, when I rushed home, Shane had already been arrested. When I heard that it was Shane who had hurt Yvonne, I didn't think too much about it. After all, my impression of Shane in my mind was still stuck in the primary school stage at that time. He was the most unsociable one in a class because his father was a murderer. The classmates didn't play with him. Although I didn't reject him, I didn't deliberately get close to him either. In the 4th grade of primary school, Shane's mother committed suicide because she couldn't bear the pressure. Then he transferred to another school. I thought that we would never see each other again. I didn't expect that there was such a missed fate. Thank God for giving me a chance to be reborn this time. I must give him a different life. I looked at Yvonne's face, which was flushed with anger, and sarcastically curled the corner of my mouth. "Don't flatter yourself. Shane told me that even if all the women in the world died out, he wouldn't like you." "You're lying." I took out my mobile phone. "I have him on WeChat. If you don't believe me, I'll let him tell you himself." Yvonne was both angry and resentful, and her cold eyes stared at me fixedly. "If you don't dare, I'll go home then." I smiled. I've made an appointment with Shane for a video call tonight. After saying that, I ignored Yvonne's hostile gaze, walked past her and headed towards the staircase. When I got home, I locked myself in my room immediately after finishing my homework. I did a set of math exam papers. In this new life, I was a bit rusty on some high school knowledge fortunately. This knowledge wasn't that difficult, and I had learned it before. After reviewing it a few times, I got the hang of it. After finishing the papers, I clicked on Shane's WeChat profile picture. There was no response at all. Could this guy have gone out to fool around again? I immediately sent a message asking, "Are you doing the papers?" "Yes," Shane replied instantly. I felt relieved and then sent another message, "Ask me if you don't understand. I'll accompany you until 12 o'clock. Go to sleep. Don't disturb my studies." Shane replied instantly again, sounding very confident. I was stunned for a moment. You know, the difficulty of our school's monthly exam papers was almost as high as that of the college entrance examination. Shane, a poor student in an ordinary high school, could actually do them. Could it be that he had been hiding his true strength? After all, he had quite good grades in primary school. He probably didn't get into No. 1 middle school because he didn't perform well in the high school entrance examination. However, why did he pretend to be a poor student after entering No. 2 middle school? I didn't quite understand, but since he didn't need my help, I wouldn't disturb him then. I searched for Harbor Middle School on my mobile phone and wrote down the enrollment phone number of this high school with a note. Harbor Middle School is a private high school in our local area, although its student source and teaching staff can't compare with those of No. 1 middle school. Its enrollment rate of first-tier universities and the learning atmosphere of the school are much better than those of No. 2 middle school. Moreover, it has a boarding system and military-style management. If Shane could transfer to Harbor Middle School, would he be able to stay away from those delinquent teenagers in society? He would also be able to successfully complete the college entrance examination, wouldn't be pestered and framed by Yvonne, and wouldn't bear the charge of being a rapist and be in prison and in the prime of his life. I put the copied phone number into my math book, just as I was thinking about whether to do another set of real physics exam papers. The door was opened from the outside. Outside the door, my mother looked at me angrily with the key in her hand. I sarcastically curled the corner of my mouth. "What did your dear daughter complain about me this time? Who taught you to talk to me in such a sarcastic way?" My mother raised her voice very high, and I instinctively rubbed my ears. "Come on. What exactly do you want to say?" I had lost my patience. "Are you in a puppy love?" she asked with a cold face. Gritting her teeth, yes. I didn't deny it, hearing my own admission. The expression on her face was almost ferocious. She suddenly rushed over, grabbed my hair, and slapped me in the face. This was the punishment method she usually used when she was enraged. I stretched out my arm to block it, and with a push, I pushed her onto the bookshelf. "How dare you fight back?" She looked at me in disbelief. I stood up from the chair and looked at her coldly. "It's self-defense." As soon as I finished speaking, my father rushed in. He helped my mother, who was sitting on the ground, up and looked at me with a complicated expression. "Joanne, your mother is also concerned about you." I nodded. I appreciate her concern, but I hope she can also care more about her younger daughter in the future. In this monthly exam, she ranked last in the grade. With such grades, there's no hope for her to go to college. In my previous life, Yvonne didn't get into college and finally went to a very poor vocational school. However, at that time, they blamed everything on Shane. I thought that it was the mental trauma caused by Shane's harm that made Yvonne perform poorly in the college entrance examination, and only got more than 200 points. "How could I have raised such a vicious daughter like you?" My mother, upon hearing this, pointed at my nose and cursed loudly. "Your sister isn't as smart as you, but she's simple-minded. Unlike you, you're always up to no good." "What have I done that's no good?" I sneered. "Give me an example and tell me how my mind is vicious." "Joanne, stop talking," my father glared at me reproachfully. "Apologize to your mother and let this matter pass." "It can't pass." I gritted my teeth, turned around, put the books and pens on the desk into my school bag, and walked towards the door. Outside the door, Yvonne looked at me triumphantly. "Where are you going?" my mother roared from behind. "Leaving you," I said. "If you walk out of this house today, don't recognize me as your mother. I'll pretend that I never gave birth to you as a daughter." I paused for a moment, turned around, looked at her angry and distorted face, and nodded. I couldn't ask for more. "Joanne," my father unconsciously raised his voice. But looking at my back, He didn't say anything further. Yvonne curled her lips. Sister. Are you leaving home to find Shane? She paused and then continued. The son of that murderer. As soon as she finished speaking, my mother rushed out. She tremblingly grabbed my clothes and asked with a ferocious look. Are you involved with the son of that murderer? I reached out and tried hard to break her grip. She was holding on tightly. Answer me. Is it true? Yes, get out. She suddenly pushed me away. Opened the front door and shouted. Get out of this house. I'll consider you dead. Okay. Walking out of the house, I let out a long sigh of relief. 77 today's break was not in my plan. Although I had wanted to leave this home for a long time, I originally planned to leave after arranging everything. But I really lost my patience. That woman's hostility and control over me were really suffocating. At the moment when she rushed towards me, I even had the thought of killing her to relieve my hatred. This thought was too dangerous and not worth it. I looked down at my hands and thought to myself what a wonderful pair of hands they were. In the future, I would be admitted to a top-notch university and write best-selling works. I couldn't let her ruin me anymore. After leaving the community, I felt a bit at a loss after being in a daze for a while. I started sending messages to Shane. Your girlfriend has run away from home. Do you care? Sick. He replied instantly. Looking at the speed of his reply, it was hard to imagine that he was doing exercises, because every time I did my homework and practiced questions, I would lock my phone in the drawer. Damn it. You're not joking, are you? Soon, having fulfilled my obsession, Shane's message came again. I replied. Good students don't joke. Where are you? I took a look at the Agricultural Bank of China across the road and replied. I'm at the Agricultural Bank of China opposite my community. Wait. Okay. Shane came quickly. He was wearing flip-flops and big shorts and stopped in front of me on his electric bike. Why aren't you dressed properly? I blushed a little. The thin young man still had something to show. Shane's face turned even redder. I forgot. Oh. Do you want me to take you home? He asked. I shook my head and looked at him. Can I go to your home? Shane's face wasn't just red now. I felt like even his chest muscles were blushing. Isn't this progress a bit too fast? Are you afraid? I provoked him. Get on. The young man couldn't stand being provoked and threw me a helmet. I took the helmet, put it on, and sat on the back seat of the electric bike. Hold on tight, Shane gave a warning. And the bike sped off really fast. After hesitating for a moment, I put my arms around his waist. Under the street lights in the city at night, I could clearly see that the young man's ears were so red that they seemed to be bleeding. The early autumn night was still hot, and the young man's body was scalding hot. Shane took me into an alley. Finally, he stopped in front of a shabby courtyard. Shane parked the bike and kicked the door open. The courtyard was very small, about 10 square meters, but it was cleaned very cleanly. Shane kicked the door with a big movement, without any scruples. Do you live alone? I asked curiously. Yeah. Shane locked the courtyard door from the inside and took me into the house. The house was very small, with a living room, a bedroom, and a small kitchen where you could cook. The overall area, it seemed, was only about 30 square meters. When I learned that he lived alone, I originally thought it would be in a mess. But when I entered the house, I found that it was tidied up very neatly. Shane walked into the bedroom and put on a t-shirt. You sleep in the bedroom? He said as he walked to the outer sofa and sat down. I nodded and said, I'll check my homework first. Shane was stunned, dumbfounded, and shocked. What, didn't you do it? I was a bit disappointed. Joanne, you ran away from home. Don't tell me it's just to check my homework. I thought about it seriously. Kind of. Sec. Shane lay on the sofa and pretended to be dead by covering his head. I walked over, sat beside him, and asked with a smile, Then do you still want to court me? Yes. Shane gritted his teeth. Be good, go and take out your homework and the test papers I gave you. You're ruthless. Shane had done his homework, but the quality was worrying. He could get 9 out of 10 questions wrong, and the correct rate was infinitely close to 0. As for the several sets of test papers I gave him, he had done each set, but only answered the multiple choice questions. I looked at him suspiciously. Did you choose by lottery? Yeah. Shane's honesty made my heart ache. What's your ranking in this month's exam? I touched my somewhat excited heart and asked. Didn't look. Shane casually touched his nose. Definitely at the bottom. I put down the test papers and looked at him. Shane, I'm a very serious person. Since I agreed to be your girlfriend, I'm aiming for a lifetime. I paused and then continued, in the future, I'll be admitted to the top university in China and become a writer. I'll be very successful. Your attitude towards study makes me feel that you're being a bit perfunctory towards me and yourself after saying that. I stood up from the sofa, took my school bag, and went into the bedroom. As soon as I entered the bedroom, I locked the door from the inside. The unfamiliar environment didn't make me nervous. Instead, it made me calmer. I left in a hurry and didn't bring my pajamas. I also didn't take a shower. But I didn't want to move anymore. I felt very tired. Both mentally and physically. Shane's bed was washed very clean. When I lay on it, I could vaguely smell the fragrance of soap. I closed my eyes and slowly fell asleep. When I woke up, Shane was cooking noodles in the kitchen wearing an apron. When he saw me get up, he brought the noodles to the table and fried poached eggs just as I was about to sit at the table. Shane handed me a plastic bag on the sofa. I opened it and saw some daily toiletries. They were all brand new and unopened. He should have bought them at the morning market. The bathroom is outside. He pointed to the temporary small room built at the corner of the east wall. I ran over, washed my face, and brushed my teeth. Then I unscrewed the Dabao, a brand of skin cream he just bought, and wiped my face. After going back to the room, I silently ate the noodles and eggs he cooked. And my heart was beating fast. Shane silently lowered his head. When I finished eating the noodles and wanted to stand up to clean up, he suddenly pressed my hand and asked, "Do you really want to be my girlfriend?" "Yes." "Aiming for a lifetime?" he asked again. I raised my eyes and looked into his eyes. "A lifetime." He snatched the bowls and chopsticks from my hand and rushed into the kitchen. When he came out again, I saw that his eyes were red. "Joanne, you asked me yesterday if there was anything I wanted to do. I've thought about it. I want to be a doctor." After saying that, he paused and looked at me. Can the son of a murderer become a doctor? When I saw him asking this question in a nonchalant tone, my heart suddenly ached severely. "I believe in you, yes." I walked over and hugged him after eating. Shane put on his school badge and said he would take me to school. I nodded and said, "You accompany me to go home at noon." He was stunned for a moment. I hinted. Disappointment flashed in his eyes, but he quickly returned to normal. "You're a girl, don't you run away from home casually in the future." After saying that, he smiled, put his arm around me, and warned in a deep voice, "If you tease me again next time, I won't be polite to you." I stared at his cynical smiling face, stood on tiptoe, kissed him on the mouth, blinked, and asked, "Does this count as teasing you?" "Yes." He gritted his teeth, trying hard to suppress his emotions, but I still felt his wild heartbeat and heavy breathing. "Accompany me home at noon. I'll give you the right to be impolite to me," I said. Sick. He pushed me away and ran out of the door, looking at the young man's flustered back as he fled. I couldn't help laughing. He can't even stand this level of teasing. How innocent. I touched my chin and pretended to be calm as I walked out of the door. Shane was pushing his electric bike and waiting for me at the courtyard gate. Seeing me come out, he awkwardly turned his face away and handed me the helmet. I sat on the back seat and pinched his right lobby. "Remember to pick me up at school at noon." "Okay." So obedient. I let go of his lobby and put my arms around his waist. Shane's body stiffened for a moment, and then he started the bike. At noon, I was waiting for Shane at the school gate. James ran over. He was out of breath and looked at me. "Joanne, I heard from Yvonne that you didn't go home last night. Did Auntie put pressure on you again?" I looked at him quietly. At that time, the worry and concern on his face were so genuine. I once thought that he would be the person who understood me best in the world. When I was repeatedly picked on and framed by Yvonne. When I was maliciously criticized and slandered by my mother. When I once felt that life was so hopeless that I wanted to die. It was James who held me back. He looked at me sincerely and said, "Joanne, do you want to take the college entrance examination with me next year? Let's leave here, change to a new environment, and everything will be okay." I believed that when he said this. He was sincere, however. His sincerity was too cheap. It was easily taken away by Yvonne. I would never forget the way he and Yvonne were rolling around on the bed, close to each other. And those disgusting and lewd words. Every time I thought about it, I would feel sick. I looked at him coldly. "And James?" Expression became flustered. Joanne. What's wrong with you? Stop pestering me. I said coldly. I'm just concerned about you. James lowered his head pitifully. I know I'm not good enough for you. I don't dare to expect that you'll like me. I'll be satisfied just watching you from afar. Really? I curled my lips and smiled sarcastically. And don't stand so close, step back 100 meters and watch me. James blushed with shame and looked at me in disbelief. What on earth happened? Nothing. I just hate the bootlickers who cling to me. After I said that, there was a hint of moisture in Jane's eyes. His pitiful look made me feel sick to my stomach. A sharp horn sound rang out at the school gate. I turned my head and saw Shane sitting on the electric bike wearing the school uniform of No. to middle school, looking at me with a ruffian look. At this moment, looking at his punk yellow hair, I suddenly found it very pleasing to the eye. Without thinking, I lifted my feet and ran towards him as soon as I sat on the bike. Shane immediately started the bike. James stared at us in disbelief, while I gave him the middle finger when we arrived downstairs at my house. Shane's face looked very gloomy. He was cool and cold, but I found him more and more adorable. I just had a few words with James. Yet he looked like a poor little thing who had caught his partner cheating but had to swallow his anger. I walked a couple of steps and then turned around. Aren't you coming up with me, crazy? He turned sideways, not wanting to pay attention to me. I'll have a lot of things to move later. I'm just a girl and can't carry them by myself. I said cockathiously. Finally, Shane turned his face towards me and looked at me suspiciously. I'm going to move in and live with you for a while. I didn't beat around the bush anymore. Shane was stunned for a moment, and he walked over, put his hands on my shoulders, and said in a deep voice, Joanne, are you out of your mind? Why? Are you afraid that I'll flirt with you? I provoked him again. This time, he didn't fall for it. Instead, he looked at me with a complicated expression and asked, aren't you afraid? Afraid of what? I was puzzled. I'm the son of a murderer. He said word by word. Have you ever killed anyone? I asked. Shane was stunned. Quick, help me go upstairs to pack my things, or we'll be late for class. I patted him on the shoulder and pretended to be relaxed. You're really crazy, he said very affirmatively. Then take me as your girlfriend. Don. Let me go and bring trouble to others. Okay. After going upstairs, I packed some clothes for changing and also found out the bank card that my grandmother had given me before. Shane stood at the door of the room, watching quietly from last night until now. He hadn't asked me why I had run away from home. I didn't know if he didn't want to ask or if he actually knew everything. After getting everything sorted out, Shane carried the suitcase out. I took a plastic bag and put some of my review materials and notebooks with wrong questions from the first year of high school in it. I thought these might be useful for Shane after all this fuss. It was already 1 o'clock when we got back to Shane's small yard. Our school didn't start classes until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so there was still plenty of time, but the second high school started classes at 1:30. Seeing that Shane was about to be late, I urged him to hurry up. The battery of the electric bike is low. I'll charge it for a while, Shane said slowly. Isn't there a bus? I said. What's the rush? Shane looked at me with a mischievous smile. We poor students can skip a few classes, no one will notice. You. His indifferent attitude made me a bit annoyed. Do you want to eat dumplings, top student? Shane plugged in the electric bike and then walked into the kitchen. I didn't react for a moment. Aren't you hungry? Shane smiled in a ruffian way. That's right, you girls like to lose weight. It's okay to skip a meal or two. I can't. I'm still growing. After saying that, Shane started to wash the pot and boil water. I wanted to go and help him, but he refused. Take this chance to take a shower, you stink. He turned his head away in disgust, and my face immediately turned red. I had left in a hurry last night, and it was the first time for me to stay at a boy's house. Even though I had lived 2 lives, I was still too embarrassed to take a shower here. Especially since I didn't have any clean underwear to change into. With a red face, I ran into the room, opened the suitcase, took a set of clothes for changing, and walked towards the small house in the yard. The house was very simple, and it was obvious that it had been built temporarily, but it was neatly tidied up inside. With a toilet, a water heater, and a wash basin, everything was there. After I took a shower and came out, Shane happened to put the dumplings on the table and also peeled 2 cloves of garlic, asking me if I wanted some. I'm afraid of having bad breath in the afternoon since we still have classes. I refused. And I'll eat them. I'm not afraid of the bad smell. As he said that, he raised his eyebrows at me. So childish. After eating, Shane went to wash the dishes. My mobile phone rang a few times. I took a look at the caller ID and walked outside the yard to answer it. Joanne, your mother is just like that. After you left last night, I also did some ideological work on her. She said that as long as you break up with the son of that murderer, she can take back those words. On the phone, my father's voice was filled with deep helplessness. I lowered my head and looked at the small stones under my feet, with very complicated feelings. Compared with my mother's strictness and harshness towards me, Jack's attitude towards me had always been ambiguous. He would stop my mother when she lost control of her emotions, and was about to go crazy. But he had never said, "Joanne, it's not your fault." What he said the most was, "Your mother is doing it for your good. You should be grateful and understanding. Listen to your mother, admit your mistake, and this matter will be over." He had always turned a blind eye to the grievances and harsh treatment I had suffered. Compared with Luna's hysteria, his indifference was even more suffocating. Since I could remember when I was a child, he had never hugged me once. When I was little, I often saw him carrying Yvonne on his shoulder. He took her to buy ice creams, toys, and beautiful princess dresses. Of course, when he came back, he would also prepare a share for me. But the flavors that Yvonne liked were never the ones I liked. Those childish toys and fancy dresses, Yvonne was never willing to share with me. She would cry and say that all the toys were hers alone. There could only be one princess in the family. I was just the little maid beside the princess, and couldn't wear the same dress as her. Luna said, "You're the older sister. You should give in to your younger sister." I gave in. I gave in too many times. Finally, having fulfilled me, I was abandoned and in the cold morgue. When my soul had just separated from my body, my perception hadn't disappeared yet. I stayed beside my own body, feeling the bone-chilling and long-lasting cold. I thought, why did I still have to suffer like this even though I was already dead? What on earth had I done wrong? I cried until there were no more tears left and asked myself again and again if it hadn't been for Shane's appearance. I didn't know how long I would have to endure such torture before my soul could finally rest in peace. "Joanne, are you listening?" Jack's gentle voice interrupted my painful memories. I rubbed my eyes and asked slowly, "If it were Yvonne, would you still say the same thing?" "What does this have to do with Yvonne?" He immediately raised his voice, with a tone full of puzzlement. "Forget it. I still have classes later on. Call again." After saying that, I quickly hung up the phone after taking a few deep breaths. I was just about to go in and ask Shane if he was ready when my arm was suddenly grabbed. I turned around and saw a middle-aged woman in her 40s winking at me. I was confused and was about to break free. She lowered her voice and asked, "Seeing your school uniform, you also go to No. 1 middle school?" Yes, this woman must be crazy. Why was she pulling my clothes for no reason? "My son also goes to No. 1 middle school. He just got admitted this year. His name is Henry. Do you know him?" "No, I don't." I pushed her hand away and took 2 steps back to keep a distance from her. She rather rudely came closer again. "What's your relationship with that blonde guy?" "Blonde guy?" I had to say. It was quite a vivid description. "You're a good student. Don't fool around with him," she advised me, thinking she was being kind-hearted. "He's my boyfriend," I said. The woman was stunned and said in disbelief, "Girl, when choosing a partner, you can't just look at the appearance. Do you know that his father was a murderer who specifically killed young girls in their prime? He has abnormal genes in his body. Aren't you afraid that he—" Bang! Before the woman could finish her words, she was interrupted by a loud noise of kicking the door. Shane pushed the electric bike out and glared at the woman viciously, threatening, "Lock your doors and windows tightly tonight, or I'll kill your whole family." I was just passing by. The woman's face turned pale and she ran away as fast as she could. "Get on." Shane's voice was very low. "Okay." I could clearly feel the anger in his body, so I could only hold his waist tightly and put my face against his tense back. When we arrived at the school gate, I got off the bike. I grabbed Shane, who was about to leave. He looked at me a bit irritably. His usual ruffian expression had been replaced by a kind of tired annoyance. I stretched out my finger and touched his palm, trying hard to soothe his emotions. Shane, from today on, consider me as your whole world. Okay? He was stunned for a moment, then he took out cigarettes and a lighter from his trouser pocket. I snatched the lighter from him and lit it in front of him. He lowered his head and took a puff. The smell of the cigarette drifted into my nose and then into my throat. I felt a bit choked, but I tried my best to hold back the urge to cough. Looking at Shane's restless eyes. Don't care about other people's opinions anymore, you just need to remember one thing: if Joanne likes Shane, then Shane has the love of the whole world. I'll give you a new life. Shane stared at me fixedly and blew a beautiful smoke ring towards my face. The corner of his mouth twitched strangely as he asked, "Are you good students also shameless?" "We good students have a lot of quirks." As I said that, I snatched his cigarette, put it out, and threw it into the trash can. Shane watched me do all this quietly. Suddenly, he raised his head, started the bike, and rode away quickly. I watched his disappearing back for a moment. I felt that he was crying, but I had no proof. There were more than 20,000 yuan after school. I went to the bank and withdrew all the New Year's money that my grandmother had left me. I kept a part of it with me and gave the rest to Shane for safekeeping. During the time we lived together, part of the household expenses will come from this. Shane looked at it disdainfully. I don't lack this little money. I insisted on giving it to him. Shane couldn't persuade me otherwise. Finally, he counted it and put it in his bag. I'm an orphan, a poor household, with a subsistence allowance and subsidies, he closed and then smiled sarcastically. Otherwise, how do you think I could go to high school? Then just keep it for me, I said. If I didn't withdraw this money, I was afraid that my mother might remember it one day and freeze my bank cards. He was capable of doing such things. In that family, my grandmother was the only one who had truly cared about me. She had also quarreled with my mother many times because of my affairs. A most serious time, she took me away from that suffocating home. She even threatened to cut off the mother-daughter relationship with her own daughter, and bring me up and send me to college. During that period of time, I studied as hard as I could every day just because I didn't want to disappoint my grandmother. She would happily tell everyone she met that her granddaughter would be able to enter Tingshui University or Peking University in the future. But when she got home, she would say to me with heartache that it didn't matter if Joanne couldn't get into Tingshui University. Grandma was just bragging, and no one would care. After 2 lifetimes, whenever I thought of her, it felt like I had just had a dream. One morning she was still smiling and saying that she would make my favorite braised pork for me. But in the evening, she was already gone. A sudden cerebral infarction occurred when there was no one at home, delaying the opportunity for rescue. He passed away before arriving at the hospital. That evening, I stood at the entrance of the yard, looking at the bustling crowd. Everything around seemed so far away from me, but the suffocating feeling in my neck pulled me back to reality. Tell me, did you make her so angry that she died? She was just over 60, and in good health. How could she have a cerebral infarction? It must be something you did. It's you, it's you. It's you right to blame for all this. I can't remember the details that followed. All I know, is that I went back to that suffocating home again, filled with deep guilt. I would think that if I hadn't moved in to live with her, she wouldn't have had to take care of me, wouldn't have had to get up so early to make breakfast for me, and wouldn't have had to accompany me to read books until very late. Would she still be alive? Thinking of this, I reached out and pulled Shane's hand. There were thick calluses on his fingertips. Every time I touched them, I felt that the oxygen to sustain life had come back. He still didn't ask anything, and just slowly held my hand back. The temperature of his fingertips made me feel that I was truly alive. In the evening, I didn't go to the self-study class. Instead, I stayed at home to supervise Shane's study. His foundation was very poor, seeing that he had muddled through the whole first year of high school. I found the textbooks for the first year of high school and also bought some related tutorial materials online, planning to let him start learning from the beginning. Shane wasn't as resistant as he was at the start, and his attitude towards learning was quite serious. He was quick-witted and could draw inferences from one instance. If he had studied hard in junior high school, getting into No.1 middle school wouldn't have been a problem at all. I don't know what he was thinking back then. He just wasted his time like that. Shane studied very seriously. 2 days later, the review materials bought online arrived, and he began to systematically do the practice questions in sets. For science subjects, He made rapid progress. The only subject where his progress was slow was English. For a subject that requires rote memorization and long-term accumulation, we couldn't rush it, we could only take it step by step. On the weekend, Shane said he was going to the second-hand market to buy a folding bed. These days, he had been huddled on the small sofa in the living room for a guy over 1.8 meters tall. It was really uncomfortable. I'll go with you. Okay. When we arrived at the second-hand market, Shane first picked out a bed and bought a folding table and a chair. There was only one desk in Shane's home before. When we reviewed together, we always sat face to face, cross-legged on the sofa, looking at him carefully choosing the table and chairs. I felt that he was really turning over a new leaf and studying hard. Come and try the height. Shane grabbed me, who was in a daze, and pushed me beside the desk. Is the chair comfortable? He asked. I nodded. Although it was a second-hand furniture market, the chair under me was a brand new swivel chair. The seat cushion was very soft and the height could be adjusted freely. It was much more comfortable than Shane's previous wooden chair. After getting an affirmative answer, Shane went to bargain with the boss. After agreeing on the price, Shane took out his wallet to pay. I stopped him and said to the boss, clearly stunned for a moment, but quickly reacted. Can you give us a discount of 10 yuan? All right, 300 for two. Rounded up, that's generous enough. Shane stepped aside and didn't say anything more. He stared at me intently, as if he wanted to bore a hole in my body. My face blushed inexplicably. He grabbed my hand, taking advantage of the time when the boss went to drive the vehicle. He pulled me into a small compartment inside. What are you doing? My heart was about to jump out of my chest. Shane glared at me with red eyes and said angrily, I've warned you. Don't fucking always tease me. Tease him? Did I? I thought helplessly that I was really wronged. I just spent 150 yuan more to buy an extra chair. How did that count as teasing him? I don't care if you tease me. You have to be responsible, he unreasonably demanded. I nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. I'll be responsible. He lowered his head, tore open the collar of my clothes, and bit my shoulder hard. He bit really hard, but strangely, I didn't feel much pain. This is the first time I clearly felt the warm tears of a boy hitting my shoulder, accompanied by suppressed sobs. This strange experience made my pain nerves dull at this moment. All I could think about was he crying again? I don't know why, but suddenly my nose also felt sour. I stretched out my arms and tightly hugged him. When we were on our way back, from a distance, we saw a group of boys and girls with colorful dyed hair and strange clothes crowded at the entrance of the yard. Among the crowd, I saw Yvonne, who was dressed relatively normally, looking at Shane and me expressionlessly as we got off the electric tricycle. The boss asked considerately, Do you need me to help you move these things into the house? Shane looked at those people and said, Just unload them here. I'll move them myself later. Sure. Hearing that he didn't need to move things, the boss got out of the car energetically. In less than 2 minutes, he unloaded the bed, the desk, and the 2 chairs. Shane, it's Army's birthday tonight. We're going to celebrate for him at I Ching restaurant. Come with us. A boy with blue dyed hair invited. Shane instinctively looked at me and refused. I'm not going to call me for these things anymore in the future. What's going on, Shane? A chubby boy with a square face said dissatisfiedly. Don't you think that just because you've got a girlfriend from one middle school, you're a good student too? Don't be stupid. Those so-called top students from one middle school who pretend to be aloof are just for fun. Don't get serious with them. If you want to have some fun, are you afraid that you can't find pretty girls to help you out at I Ching? The one who said this was a bald guy in a yellow shirt. He looked in his early 20s and was a bit older than the others. I looked at him coldly as his lewd eyes were fixed on me, and I couldn't help pinching Shane's palm with my other hand. His fist was clenched tightly, and my fingers were already numb from being pinched. The bald guy still had a malicious smile on his face. Or you can share your experience with having a top student girlfriend with us tonight. He didn't have the chance to say the rest of his words. Shane kicked him hard, sending him flying several meters away. I was terrified. This was the first time I saw Shane so angry that he lost his temper. Beat him up. The bald guy covered his chest in pain and roared in an instant. The crowd rushed over. Shane pushed me into a corner and took out a folding knife from his pocket. The surging crowd stopped. They looked at each other, probably never expecting that Shane would always carry a sharp knife with him. He stood there with cold eyes and threatened. I'll stab one if I have to anyway. I don't care about my life. I won't lose anything. The bald guy was so angry that he spat out blood on the spot. You're ruthless. As expected of the son of a murderer. Keep talking nonsense, and I'll cut your tongue off, Shane threatened coldly. The bald guy shut up. He tremblingly got up from the ground and then left with the help of a group of people. Yvonne was the last one to leave before leaving. She wanted to go forward and pull Shane. He pushed her away. Don't force me to hit a woman. Yvonne's eyes turned red with grievance. And she covered her face and ran away. I slowly walked forward and tentatively tried to take the knife from his hand. Shane pushed me against the courtyard gate. Hurry up and say you like me. He threatened. I like you. I said it word by word, seriously and firmly. Shane put the knife back into his pocket. The fierce look on his face disappeared completely, replaced by an indescribable grievance. He reached out and touched my face. What he said was all false. Huh? I didn't react at all to what was false. I've never touched those people. He added, looking so pitiful with that aggrieved look. Which people? I still didn't understand what he meant. Those pretty girls. He gritted his teeth. So, he kicked that guy so hard, just because of this? I thought he was just angry, because he couldn't stand the bald guy ridiculing me. I'm clean. Joanne. Don't abandon me. He lowered his head and buried his face in my shoulder. The tooth mark he had bitten on my shoulder not long ago still hurt. But I was too embarrassed to push him away. Because I found that he was crying again. The troubled teenager who could kick someone away with one foot in front of me was actually a crybaby. I sighed. Reached out and patted his back to soothe his emotions. After the incident of kicking someone, no one came to ask Shane to go out and play for several days in a row. But I was still on tenterhooks. Because I found that Shane's emotions were easily affected. Maybe he had heard some bad rumors at school recently. Sometimes he would lose his temper while reading books. During the time we lived together, I could feel the rejection and disgust of the neighbors towards him. Sometimes when a group of people were chatting together and saw Shane appear, they would immediately disperse. If a child took one more look at the entrance of the yard, the parents would pull the child away. Several times I heard words like murderer and freak. Although Shane didn't show any change in his expression on the surface, he might not be without sadness in his heart. His calmness was more of a kind of numbness caused by self-hypnosis. I looked at the enrollment phone numbers I had copied down before, and thought that the midterm exam was only half a month away. This midterm exam was a citywide joint exam. All middle schools had the same exam questions. If Shane could score 400 points, I would have the chance to transfer to Harbor Middle School with him. I was the top scorer in the high school entrance examination that year. When the scores came out, the enrollment teachers from Harbor Middle School came to my home. The condition they offered was that as long as I went there, tuition, accommodation, and meals would be free. And there would be a scholarship of 50,000 and due on every year. To be honest, I was really tempted. I dreamed of going to Harbor Middle School, but my mother, Ms. Luna, said that I would definitely go astray if I went to a boarding school. She told me to give up that idea and go to one middle school obediently. I thought that as long as I was still the top scorer in the city in this joint exam, I would have the confidence to negotiate with them, because although their enrollment rate for first-tier universities was good last year, they lacked high-scoring candidates. The only 7 students admitted to 985 universities were all repeat students. And their student status was in other schools. They needed a student who could aim for Tsinghua or Peking University to improve their reputation. I told Shane about my plan. After hearing it, he said calmly, I'll go wherever you are in the world. I didn't think much of it when I said those words before. But now that Shane said them, my face flushed with embarrassment. Shane was right. I was really shameless. The midterm exam results came out. Shane's total score was 423. He ranked in the top 10 in his class and 156th in the grade. His progress shocked the teachers in the second high school. They even held a commendation meeting and awarded him a progress award. The prizes were a fountain pen and an English dictionary. Shane threw the prizes on the coffee table. How stingy. It would be much better if they just gave money directly. I looked at his English test paper and smiled. Your teachers hope that you can improve your English grades. This time, he still didn't pass the English exam and only got 75 points. What about you? He asked. Is there a chance for you to go to Harbor Middle School? Yes. In my previous life, I was the top student in the city in that midterm joint exam this time. It was no exception. I've already called their admissions department and made an appointment to visit the school on Saturday afternoon. We'll go together then. Okay. Shane turned around and went to the kitchen. I immediately followed him in and helped him out. Shane's cooking skills were just so-so, but at least the food he cooked was edible. Unlike me, no matter how many times I read the recipes, I always ended up cooking something horrible in the end. The first time Shane ate the food I cooked, he said that he needed some compensation for his mental suffering then. He pinned me down on the dining table and kissed me. He kissed me so hard that a large area on my waist turned purple. Finally, I couldn't bear the pain and pushed him away. He wiped his mouth and said viciously, "Remember, if you cook something horrible again next time, I'll break your waist." His threat was full of a crazy temperament. I was convinced. On Saturday, we visited the new school. The principal received me personally when I asked for free tuition, accommodation and board, as well as a scholarship of 20,000 and yuan per year. He agreed. The only hesitation was that I wanted to be in the same class as Shane. He wanted to arrange me into the key class, but with Shane's current grades, he might not be able to keep up with the progress in the key class. He can keep up, I assured the principal. Even if he can't, I'll teach him. Okay. The principal didn't hesitate for long after all. Shane was just an added bonus. I was his hope to strive for Tingshui University or Peking University. Whether Shane could keep up or not didn't really matter that much. You can go back and ask your family members to handle the transfer procedures. And then you can enroll. Okay. Shane was an orphan and a staff in the community could handle his transfer procedures. As for me, since I wasn't an adult yet, I could only ask that couple to handle it. Luna would definitely not agree to my transfer to Harbor Middle School since she threatened to cut off relations with me. She hadn't contacted me either, only my head teacher and the principal, and no one middle school had talked to me several times. It seemed that Luna had told them about my relationship with Shane. She said that I was dating the son of a murderer. I might go astray in the future, and she asked the teachers in the school to help me. Fortunately, both my head teacher and the principal believed me. They asked me to go home and communicate with her properly, sit down as a family, and clear up all the misunderstandings. Could we clear them up? I had lived 2 lives already. I still didn't know where her hatred for me came from. Since I was a child, which of the things she asked me to do hadn't I done well? But she never seemed to be satisfied. She had a deep-rooted and unchangeable prejudice against me. On our way back, we passed by a supermarket. Shane said that he wanted to go in and buy some meat and seasonings. We pushed the shopping cart into the supermarket. As soon as we entered, we saw Yvonne snuggling up to Jack's side. The two of them were standing in front of the shelves choosing snacks. I instinctively wanted to avoid them. But Shane held my hand. "Don't be afraid. Let's just buy our things." I thought about it and decided not to run away. It happened to be a good opportunity to ask him if he was willing to help me handle the transfer procedures at this time. Yvonne also saw me. "Sister," she called softly and looked up seriously. "Mom is in the hospital. Do you know that?" I was stunned for a moment. Yvonne continued, "If you're free tomorrow, go and see Mom. She was made ill by you. Then if I go to see her, won't it make her even sicker?" I was enraged. Shane held my hand and said calmly, "I'll make boiled fish for you tonight." Okay. I turned around and wanted to leave. Jack grabbed me. He looked at me thoughtfully and said, "Your mom is really sick this time. She had appendicitis and just had an operation yesterday." "Joanne, why are you so cold-blooded?" Yvonne walked over, knocked Jack's hand that was holding me away, and angrily accused me. "For the sake of the son of a murderer, don't you even recognize your own mother anymore? No wonder she said that you're an ungrateful wretch, no matter how nice she is to you. You won't be grateful." Yvonne's voice was very loud. Soon, a crowd gathered around us. I could feel their accusing gazes and their unspoken anger. I clenched my fist and told myself over and over again to stay calm and not be provoked. But I felt dizzy for a moment, and my ears were buzzing. I wanted to refute, but I couldn't say a word. The memories of being cyberbullied, being pointed at, and being cursed in my previous life overlapped with this moment. For a while, I couldn't tell whether it was a dream or reality, until Shane held my hand and ran out of the crowd. He pulled me and ran for a long time. The lights and shadows on the street flashed quickly before my eyes until he stopped in front of the gate of his yard. "Joanne, you coward. If she curses you, why don't you slap her?" The reproach, full of disappointment, made me daze for a moment. "How cowardly you are." He angrily kicked the door open. "Next time she curses you again, I'll go up and slap her. Slap that bitch to death." "Shane," I called out. He turned around reflexively, and I hugged his neck and kissed him hard. "I'll listen to you. Next time, I'll slap her hard." "Right, slap her to death." The next day, I still went to the hospital. Shane was right. Running away couldn't solve the problem. I needed to make a formal farewell to that family. I took the form given by the school to the hospital and asked Luna to sign it. Without even looking at it, Luna tore it up. "I'm not your mother, ask someone else to sign it." She still looked a bit pale after the operation, and her voice didn't have the arrogance it used to have. I took out another one from my school bag. "If you don't sign it, I'll come again. Even if you make 1,000 copies. I won't sign this word." I smiled and took a stool and sat down in front of her bed. "Sign this word, and I'll take care of you when you're old. You're my child if you don't take care of me when I'm old." "I'll see you," she said righteously. "I'll go abroad and leave here." I looked at her seriously and said, "You know, with my grades, I can apply to any university abroad. Have you ever known about Yvonne's grades? She ranked third from the bottom in the whole school in this midterm exam. She doesn't go home every night. She lies to you that she's staying at a classmate's house, but actually she's hanging out in nightclubs." I took out a stack of photos from my school bag and threw them in front of her. "Shane bought these photos from those hooligans." Each photo shocked my perception. Luna couldn't believe it and looked at those photos one by one. "Photoshopped," she screamed and threw the photos at my face. "Joanne, how could you slander your sister like this?" At this time, the door was opened. Jack walked in. The photos on the ground were scattered all over. He crouched down, picked them up one by one for a long time. He didn't stand up again, unlike Luna's losing control. He seemed very calm. "Joanne, your head teacher called me and said that you want to transfer." "Yes, look to transfer." "I'm transferring to Harbor Middle School," I said. He looked at the form and documents in my hand. "I'll take a day off tomorrow and go to the school and the education bureau." "Don't you dare go," Luna shouted angrily. Jack ignored her and sent me to the outside of the ward. He said, "Joanne, once you go to Harbor Middle School, don't come back to this family anymore." "Okay." Jack didn't break his promise. The transfer procedures were quickly completed. At the same time, Shane's procedures were also properly handled. After this weekend, Shane and I would go to Harbor Middle School as boarders. There, it would be a completely new environment. Both Shane and I would have a brand new start and a bright future. Harbor Middle School had relatively strict regulations and didn't allow students to dye or perm their hair. Shane's SMECTA-style blonde hair was dyed black, and he shaped his hair into a crew cut. Without the cover of his bangs, his facial features looked handsome and clear. The hostility between his eyebrows and eyes was not so obvious, and he looked much more easygoing. The row of ear studs on his left ear was also taken off. I touched the dense ear holes and asked him softly if it hurt. "It hurt a little when they were pierced. Don't pierce them again in the future." "I don't like it," I said. "Yeah, I don't like it either." Shane agreed readily. I was speechless. I thought to myself that if you didn't like it, why did you pierce so many holes and have such an unmainstream SMECTA hairstyle? "I just wanted to fit in." Shane leaned over and kissed my face. "Joanne, before you, no one had ever been close to me. My heart was empty and scared. I just wanted to stay in a place with more people, whether they were good or bad. I didn't care. I just wanted someone to be by my side all the time." "I understand." I hugged his neck and deepened the kiss. In some ways, he and I were actually the same kind of people. Since I was a child, I had helped my classmates and respected my teachers. I was a good student in the eyes of my teachers and classmates in my life. I had never dared to make any deviations or mistakes. I forced myself to be the perfect Joanne. But I had never liked myself like this many times. My heart was also empty and panicky. Even though there were so many teachers and classmates who liked me, I still felt that I didn't fit in. Except for James, who had briefly comforted me. I didn't even have a friend I could confide in by my side many years later. I finally understood that all my efforts originated from my deep desire to be affirmed. That was the shadow engraved in my bones by Luna. It was Shane's fire that gave me a new life. Shane and I adapted well to life in Harbor Middle School. In the final exam of the first semester of the second year of high school, Shane scored 568 points in total. With this score, there were already some options available in some medical colleges. But Shane thought it wasn't enough. He worked much harder than I did. The boys in the same dormitory with him offed and described him as a devil. I knew that he wanted to be admitted to the same city as me. I entered Harbor Middle School and signed a bet agreement. Tsinghua University and Peking University were my only goals. In my previous life, I took the college entrance examination ahead of schedule in the second year of high school. At that time, I ranked 56th among science students in the whole province. With this ranking, even if I was admitted, I would be rather passive in choosing majors, so I chose an ACE major in a 985 university in the south this time. I planned to fight with Shane until the last moment of the third year of high school to strive for the most perfect future. During the winter vacation, Shane and I didn't leave school until the end of the year. Shane's small courtyard had been unoccupied for a long time and was covered with a thick layer of dust. I took a broom to clean it up while Shane went to the supermarket to buy New Year's goods. When he came back, he was carrying a lot of bags. While sorting things out, I saw 2 pairs of Spring Festival couplets and 5 Fu meaning good fortune characters on New Year's Eve. Shane pasted the Fu characters on each door. Firecrackers were not allowed in the urban area, so Shane bought several fireworks and set them off in the courtyard. In the light of the fireworks, we both saw the best versions of ourselves in each other's eyes. On the morning of the first day of the Lunar New Year, I was woken up by a phone call. It was from Luna. On the phone, she was sobbing and said that Yvonne had an accident. Hearing this news, I instinctively put on my slippers and went to find Shane. Shane was cooking dumplings in the kitchen wearing a cotton padded coat when he saw me running out without getting dressed properly. He scolded, "School will start in a few days. What will you do if you catch a cold from the cold?" The moment I saw Shane, my heart that had been hanging finally settled down. "Call the police and catch them," I said to the flustered Luna on the other end of the phone after hanging up. I was a bit dazed. In my previous life, Yvonne had an accident when Shane was in the third year of high school. At that time, there were only 3 days left before the college entrance examination, and the school had already been on holiday. Shane was arrested by the police before he even entered the examination room. I changed my clothes and sat at the dining table, waiting for Shane's dumplings while thinking about what had happened at this time in my previous life. At that time, Yvonne offed and didn't come home at night. I didn't bother to care about her. On that New Year's Eve of that year, she went out after having the New Year's Eve dinner, and she didn't come back until the next morning. She was disheveled and looked rather messy, but she was in a good mood. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, she stayed at home all day, dancing in her room with the stereo turned up very loud. I was so annoyed by the noise that I went to knock on her door. She rarely didn't oppose me and said with a smile, "Joanne, my spring has come." I cursed sick and went back to my room. Yvonne's abnormal behavior and good mood only lasted for 3 days. 3 days later, she became that selfish, willful, and vicious Yvonne again. And she became even more excessive, so I took the college entrance examination ahead of schedule to stay away from her deliberate targeting. What exactly happened on that New Year's Eve in my previous life? Also, last night, how could she have been? I was lost in thought when Shane had already brought the dumplings to the table. "Hurry up and eat them before they get cold," he said, and then picked up one for himself first. I didn't move my chopsticks and looked at Shane and asked, "Were you familiar with Yvonne before?" "Not really," Shane looked at me and said a bit hurtfully. "You don't think I had that kind of feelings for her, do you?" "Huh?" Seeing that he misunderstood, I immediately explained, "I didn't mean that. I just thought she liked you a lot and thought your relationship should be good. I don't have that kind of feelings for her." Shane took a bite of the dumpling and said, "She was quite wild and to middle school and didn't cherish herself. Many boys wanted to get involved with her. I couldn't stand it and saved her several times." "Is that so? If so, perhaps it could be explained why Yvonne didn't have an accident on that New Year's Eve in my previous life and was in a good mood because Shane saved her desperately, so she was safe and sound. She thought Shane saved her because he liked her. Later she found out that it wasn't the case, that That's why she hated me so much. She hated Shane and was willing to ruin his life thinking of these. My hands trembled uncontrollably. If in this life, Shane and I hadn't lived together and hadn't gone to Harbor Middle School together. Would it be? Would it be? I didn't dare to think about it anymore. Seeing that I lowered my head, Shane explained a bit shyly. I saved her because she's your sister. I know, I know. I raised my head, looked at him, and pretended to be relaxed, and asked, Shane, did you like me when you were very young? Don't be so narcissistic. It was clearly you who liked me first. Shane grabbed the dumplings in my bowl rather unhappily. Alright, alright, alright. I liked you first. Who told my Shane to be so proud and loved to cry? I looked at him and giggled. If you don't eat, I'll throw them away. Shane glared at me angrily. I'll eat if you feed me. Sick. In the next 2 days, Luna called several times. She wanted me to go to the hospital to see Yvonne and comfort her. I refused. It wasn't that I was cold-blooded, but if I went, the situation would only get worse. Moreover, thinking about how she treated Shane, who had saved her more than once in my previous life, I felt sick to my stomach. School was going to start on the 6th day of the Lunar New Year. Shane and I planned to take advantage of these days to relax, go shopping, watch movies, and then devote ourselves wholeheartedly to study when school started. What I didn't expect was that although I didn't go to find Yvonne, she took the initiative to come to me. She was still wearing the hospital gown under her down jacket, and was squatting at the entrance of Shane's courtyard. Shane told her to leave, but she remained indifferent. She stared at me fixedly, as if I had instigated those who hurt her on New Year's Eve. I took out my phone and called Luna, telling her that Yvonne was here. After hanging up, Yvonne looked at me and suddenly grinned. Sister, do you know why Mom hates you? I've already informed her to come and pick you up. I forced myself to calm down and not be influenced by her emotions. She hates you because your biological father was a swindler. Over the years, haven't you ever wondered why Ed never hugged you and wasn't close to you? Because you're not his biological daughter at all. I'm his only daughter. And your mother was cheated out of everything by your biological father and was in debt. She was so desperate that she wanted to commit suicide. She was saved by my father and barely survived. Joanne, what do you have to be proud of? You're just the daughter of a swindler. After saying that, she looked at Shane and started laughing crazily. A murderer, a swindler. Damn it, a perfect match. Slap. I raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. She was stunned, and then I slapped her again. Have you gone crazy enough? If so, just get away from here. Joanne. How dare you hit me? I'll fight you. She was just about to rush at me when Shane grabbed her by the collar and lifted her up, then threw her up forcefully. I'll fight you guys. Yvonne got up and still wanted to make a scene. At this time, Jack and Luna arrived. They pinned her to the ground and then tied her hands and feet with the rope they brought with them. I stood there, looking coldly at everything in front of me. After controlling Yvonne, Luna looked at me from a distance, hesitant to speak. She's like this. Have you taken her to see a doctor? We'll take her to see a doctor when she gets better. For the first time, she didn't act arrogantly in front of me, and her voice was full of exhaustion. Yvonne said that my biological father was a swindler. Is it true? I asked again. Luna lowered her head and clasped her hands together. She didn't say anything, but I already knew the answer. Can you tell me his name? His name is Khan, and he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Life imprisonment. Then the amount of fraud must have been huge. Subus was the reason why she hated me, because I was the daughter of a swindler and had the genes of a swindler in me. That's why she said again and again that if she didn't keep an eye on me, I would go bad and end up in a juvenile detention center. So that's what she meant. If I were you, I wouldn't have given birth to her. Joanne, Luna raised her head, and her eyes were full of tears. Go back. I waved my hand. I promised to support you in your old age and won't break my promise. I turned around. I didn't know when Shane had already opened the courtyard gate when I got home. I locked myself in the bedroom. I felt empty inside, and thought that the world was so crazy. A woman gave birth to the daughter of a swindler, and then she hated her for 17 years. Wasn't she crazy? Why didn't she just abort the child? Why did she let her be born? Did she think she was so great? What a load of crap about being great. Joanne. Shane knocked on the door. Since you're so sad, I have a secret to share with you. What's the secret? I opened the door. I wasn't really looking forward to it, but I wanted to see him every time I felt suffocated or irritable. Seeing Shane would calm me down. Shane curled his lips and smiled gently. I've liked you for a long time. What kind of secret is this? I already knew it, okay. He looked at me, his eyes shining. I like you because you're Joanne. I like you so much that even when I do my homework, memorize words, and practice questions until 2 o'clock in the morning every day, I still feel happy. Even if you asked me to die now, I wouldn't hesitate. You can't find anyone else in the whole world who likes you as much as I do. Your mother, sister, and adoptive father, none of them can love you as much as 1/10,000th of what I do. This is my secret. I'm giving it to you and also giving you my life. Shane looking at his affectionate eyes. I was so choked up that I couldn't say a word. He reached out and touched my head. Good student, you now own the whole world. You know. 1 year later, in the summer, the college entrance examination scores came out. As expected, I ranked in the top 10 in the province. Harbor Middle School publicized it vigorously, and my name and photo were posted on the school's honor roll. Shane was admitted to a medical university in Beijing. Yvonne dropped out of No. 2 middle school due to mental disorder caused by that accident. After that day, Luna and Jack never came to find me again. When the summer ended, Shane and I went to Beijing together and started a new life. Epilogue. When Shane was in his 3rd year of postgraduate studies, he suddenly received a phone call. The man on the phone said that recently the police had solved a serial murder case. The murderer had committed crimes across regions for 30 years. During the interrogation, he confessed to a murder case in Zhongcheng. The information of the victim highly coincided with that of the victim in Shane's father's case. Shane hung up the phone and rushed home like crazy. He hugged me tightly, who was revising a manuscript in front of the computer. Joanne, That day, Shane hugged me and cried like a child. From sunset to moonrise, the grievances that had accumulated for 25 years were completely released when he learned that his father might be innocent. Later, there was a breakthrough in the case, and the miscarriage of justice 25 years ago was corrected. The lawyer who was in charge of Shane's father's case asked him if he wanted to apply for state compensation. Shane refused. He said that the world he had now was already the best that heaven had given him. Extra story. My world was like a mess. My name is Shane. Since I could remember, the label of the son of a murderer had been following me. I hated my father, hated him for being so abnormal that he committed murder. But I hated my mother even more. It was she who gave birth to me despite everyone's opposition. She said, "Your father was wrongly accused. Shane, you have to seek justice for your father." She kept appealing and seeking justice like a madwoman, offending everyone around her. Finally, my father was still sentenced to death. The day of the execution was an ordinary day.